Ayubuan. Today we are joined by a very eminent personality, Professor Chandima Gomes. He is among the top 2% of scientists in the world in energy research as per the Stanford University ratings, and is a distinguished professor of high voltage engineering, presently at the University of the Witwatersrand, South Africa. He was a professor of electrical engineering at University Putra, Malaysia, until 2018. Today, we will be talking about something that could be said to be at the root of our problems: corruption. These days, we hear everyone talking about corruption, from politicians to bureaucrats to the general public. But today, we'll be taking a fresh look at things. We'll be looking at things from a fresh perspective, a unique way of battling corruption, letting technology handle corruption. Professor, in Sri Lanka, corruption is one of the most commonly uttered words at the moment. Before we discuss how corruption can be prevented, is it possible for you to define this term?
Okay, thank you very much, Chamithu, and good day to all of you. This word corruption is quite widespread now as a word among the Sri Lankan public. We use it very vaguely, but if you look at the international definition of corruption, it is termed as a dishonest or fraudulent conduct by anyone in the society which will be harmful to the society. So that corruption is everywhere. Anybody can be involved in corruption, starting from our level. You and me as citizens, we can involve with corruption, and it can go right up to the highest level, the executive president. So that if a country is having zero corruption, we say that it's an ideal country, which we cannot find anywhere in the world, so that every country has a certain level of corruption. But when the corruption is widespread in mass scale, we call it a corrupted country. But what I can see is that Sri Lanka has gone one step further. It has gone from a corrupted country to a bankrupt country. This is the ultimatum. So I hope that now you understand what is corruption. It is, I summarize it, it is a dishonest or fraudulent act by anybody in the society that can harm the society.
So in your opinion, Professor, yes. So in your opinion, Professor, what are the major factors that promote corruption in a country?
Okay, if you look at the corrupted countries in the world, when I say corrupted countries, where the corruption is quite high, what you can see is that the main reason, this is actually what has been found through research as well, the main reason for promoting corruption is the non-accountability. Let me explain you it in this way. Now, I'll take few examples to tell you what is this non-accountability is. You see that if you look at the highest political level in this country, you take a parliamentarian, a minister, prime minister, president, all of these people, they accuse others. This person is involved with this many million US dollar fraud, cheating, or misappropriation. This type of allegations we hear every day. But what is the outcome? They tell one set of allegations today. And day after tomorrow, there will be another set of allegations. Are we having any type of action or actions against those accused? And on the other hand, if the accusations are not correct, if they are wrong, are we taking any actions against the accusers? We don't hear, we don't see that. And then let me come down to another level. You take the COPE committee. Now, every day, every other day, or every week, you hear the COPE committee investigate so many government institutions. And then in the newspaper, we see allegations or rather statements saying that COPE committee is very strongly condemning the chairman of this corporation or the secretary of this ministry. Sometimes they use words like banished. So this week we hear one set of allegations or one set of statements, and next week everybody forgets what we have said this week, and next week there will be another set. So nobody is accounted for accusing or accused. And this is what we call the non-accountability. And the worst part is the general public also take it as a norm. They accept it as okay. So they also are expecting an instantaneous entertainment to hear these allegations. And then next week, they are waiting for another set of allegations. And it comes down all societal layers. And finally, if you go to a office, maybe private, maybe government, you see that the CEO misusing his petrol quota. He's misusing his vehicle, taking it for his family entertainment. And then the procurement officer is taking a commission from every purchase that the institute makes. And the peon will take a bundle of A4 papers home for his own benefit. Or even the janitor takes a bottle of Harpic and toilet paper roll home. And nobody is accounted for all these acts. This is where the corruption is promoted. Hope that I gave some insight into your question.
Yes, Professor, we talked about accountability. Don't you think along with accountability, we need to address transparency too, transparency and checks and balances? Because you talked about the COPE committee accusing others, but the public not wanting to do anything about it. Don't you think if there was more transparency, if we could actually prove that these things were done?
Chamithu, actually, transparency comes when there is accountability. Because what happens is that when the accountability is not taken into account, then there will be an opaque screen comes in between the accused and the general public. So when we implement this accountability, the transparency will automatically come into play. So actually, what you raised is a very good point. In the today's discussion, when we go to the technology part, then you will find that how the accountability set forth by the technology will automatically give rise to transparency of the process.
So, as you said, over the years, many politicians, many governments have accused others of corruption. They say the previous government has done this much of fraud, this person has done this much of fraud. But a lot of governments have come into power saying that they will battle corruption, saying that they will minimize corruption. And there have been so many initiatives that have started to try and minimize corruption. Why do you think these have failed? What do you see as the main reasons for these failures?
Okay, Chamithu, that's a good point for us to get an entrance to this issue. I don't think any government, maybe one or two, but many of the governments who came to power with the intention, or at least with the hope of reducing corruption. Maybe very few people have come to power with the intention of doing corruption. But after few weeks or few months, they understand that it is something beyond their comprehension. So they take the easy option then. So they also get into the system and dissolve in the same corrupted water. So the reason is, I will start with what I said earlier, the non-accountability. And then they have no idea how this non-accountability can be overcome. So that they try to implement punishments. And they say that if you are caught up in this type of corruption, you will be punished. And some people say that we will hang you in the goal face green for these types of corruption that you have been involved. But it has never happened because there is no mechanism to implement the rules and regulations that they set forth. So that now for them, there is an intention of doing something good for the country, but they don't know what is the mechanism to do that. So I think that is where every government fails. After making some efforts at the beginning, they all understand that the corruption is actually institutionalized in the country. And in South Africa, we call it networked corruption. When the corruption is networked, it's very difficult to break. And if you want me to explain that term, it's like police is corrupted because the politicians are corrupted. And because politicians are corrupted, the business sector is corrupted. The business sector is corrupted, and that makes underground world, the underground criminals getting involved, so that the everything is connected to one another, and so that we call it a networked corruption. So when a country is get into a network of corruption or networked corruption, the even honest government officials or policymakers will find it really difficult to break it at one place and keep on breaking the entire network. So that's why the governments failed so far in curbing the corruption.
Professor, don't you think that a lot of people at the lower end of the food chain, for example, peons who might take A4 papers home, don't you think that they don't realize that what they're doing is also a part of corruption? They may blame the government, they may blame politicians, claim that they're corrupt, but they don't realize that what they are doing is also wrong. So don't you think education, like educating people, can play a critical aspect in this issue?
Chamindu, actually, this whole scenario is not happened overnight. It has come over decades, and the mindset of the general public has slowly screwed up, so that they at a certain point they start thinking that this is the norm. Because as I told you, now when you see that, say that I'm a lowest level uh, employee at an institute, say that, forget about the levels, let me say that I'm an office assistant. Now I see that the boss of the office take his vehicle uh, to go for his private trips. And then you see that the driver, seeing all these things, because the driver is the one who knows every tits and bits of the boss, and he starts claiming double, triple overtime very unjustly. And then the procurement officer is taking commissions. So when that office assistant seeing all these types of misactivities, then he naturally thinks that I'm entitled to take the A4 bundle home. So that this mindset is very difficult to be taken out. As you said, the education should come from the very lower level. But unfortunately, what is our education system? Actually, we can talk about this for hours. But let me tell you one example. We are talking about rectifying the education system to have a good mindset for the people. But imagine that how our parents try to get their kids into a good school. The corruption most often starts there. They change the address, they teach the kids to tell lies in the interview, then they make so many false documents, and the kid sees all these things at the age of 5 or 6 years of age. And that's where the corrupted mind, or the mind, starts getting corrupted. So this whole system should be changed. It takes time. It takes time. But I'm today going to tell you how we can start it initially, so that the system can rely on something, so that slowly they understand that there is a mechanism within which the corruption is not possible, at least.
So, Professor, normally when we talk about handling corruption, we talk about a lot of things like strengthening law and order, empowering the FCID, and things like that. But we don't usually talk about using technology to handle corruption. This is a very fresh thing to talk about. So, can you explain how technology can be used to suppress corruption?
Okay, Chamithu. Now, when it comes to technology, we know something, that in the modern world, many things which were high level or luxury just 5 to 10 years ago has now become the ordinary people's affordability. For an example, automation and AI, artificial intelligence, has become rather day-to-day life applications in the modern world. And a smartphone with a camera is now just an essential item of the public. So this is the background or platform on which we can talk today about the application of technology for curbing the corruption. And the first and foremost point that I see in curbing the corruption is to have, as I told you, accountability of the people. Actually, if you look at the law and order legislation in Sri Lanka, we have enough legal framework uh, for preventing corruption. The problem is how to implement those the legal framework into the society in a feasible manner. So that's where this technology comes. So number one, we should have a social security number. This is the foremost importance of the country to every citizen that lives in the island. When I say social security number, you may say that, okay, it's already we have something like that, the ID card. No, not that. We need a networked social security number for every citizen. What does that mean? Actually, nowadays, you do not even need a card. Okay, it's okay to carry a card, but your fingerprints and the retina scanning and a password can make you a part of one whole network in the country, so that once a child is born, his fingerprints and retina can be recorded, and he will be given a certain social security number, which will be networked to everywhere, every system in the country. So that when you go to a shop and buy something, you just give your fingerprint, and all transactions, whatever the money you get, whatever the money you give, whatever the applications you make, whatever the jobs you do, everything should be networked. So this is now a very good possibility. I mean, it is, I'm not talking about an abstract phenomena. If you take many developed countries, now this networked social security number is assigned to everybody. If you go to Canada, if you go to Australia, if you go to UK, Sweden, Norway, you can't be just another person hiding somewhere. You can be there for some time, maybe a few weeks or month, but you can't survive very long, because once you are not in that network, you can't get a job, you can't do a transaction, you can't do anything. You can just steal some food from somebody, eat it, and live for some time. So this is where we have to start a networked social security number for everybody. Okay. And then let me go to few other examples. If you take the police, now you know that this traffic police, for an example I'm taking, in Sri Lanka, you see that how much trouble the policemen take to prevent traffic offenses. I don't know whether their intention is to prevent the traffic offense or some other intentions, but you can see that these policemen are hiding in forest patches or behind garbage cans and trying to stop the vehicles, and then there are so many negotiations goes on, and so on. So those who knows about the system in Sri Lanka have a very good idea that how much corruption happens in this whole scenario. But nowadays, cameras are very cheap. Okay, they're very cheap, not like 10 years ago. And you can have a set of cameras every road and then network them. That is the most important thing. So every recording should be somewhere stored. And then every policeman should be given a mobile app by which they can access any camera data at any time with just typing the camera number and the time they want. And then for motor traffic offenses that need not be fined on the spot, the motor traffic offenses which need not be stopped immediately for some critical reasons, can be sorted out very easily. You get a, a summon to your home for a fine. Okay. And say, for an example, if you have oversped or overspeeded in a road, not very high, you are not going at 250 kilometers per hour, say that you have exceeded by 10, 20, 30% of the speed limit, then the camera will record it and automatically, no human interference is needed. You get a summon or a fine order to your home. Now, one may question, how can you know which person was driving the car? Now, in all countries that I lived, Sweden, Malaysia, and South Africa, one is a developed country, others are at the edge of the developing countries. What they do is, when you're buying a vehicle, the vehicle ownership is attached to a driving license, so that nobody can buy a car for use without a driving license. It should be yours or your driver's, but the driving license should be given. And then this driving license holder, most probably the owner of the car, is responsible for any offense done by driving that car. So if you are giving that car to somebody, you should know that the summon is coming to your home, so that the mechanism is done. And then somebody might ask a question, if if somebody is driving extremely fast and you have to stop that car, yes, then the police can do that. But how do you prove that the car has been driving at a very high speed, certain, say 190 kilometers per hour? Again, the camera can record it and networked, so that when the policeman stopped the car, he has to fine him. So he can't take some money and let him go because it is recorded somewhere. Already this system is there in Sri Lanka, in the highways. I'm sure that it is there. But it should be widespread. It should be implemented in the entire country, so that the traffic police people have very less work to do on the road. And also everything goes through a non-human intervene process, so that even the culprits, the people who break the traffic codes, know that they can't get away from these punishments just by bribing a policeman. So this will make the traffic system in the country, as well as the corruption, raised to a different domain where corruption is minimized and the traffic offenses are also minimized. So this is one other example. I'll go to another example. Now, if you go to a government office, for an example, to uh, to get something done. Now, imagine that you go there at a certain time, say at 7:30 in the morning, then you put your fingerprint. Then the entire system identifies this is Chandima Gomes. He came at 7:30 a.m. And then the system asks you why you came. What is your requirement? You just type it. And actually, these are not magic. Oh, these are implemented everywhere, even in Sri Lanka at the moment. But what I'm telling you is that these things can be more automated and more widespread. And then you have a number and you know where you are, because on a screen, one can display, this is where you are now. Your process is at this place, so that everything is recorded. Everyone is accountable for the process, so that if you want your application to be certified by a certain person, then there is a recording that at what time that application reached that person, and at what time he signed the document or rejected it, and at what time it was passed into the next level. So now you see that when you are in such a system, those people in the institute can't just hang on. They can't play a game of cards or just talk about the politics with the other people and waste time, because everything is accounted for. And this process will go on until you get your output at the end. And it may quicken up, it may make everything faster than the things are going on in a manual process. And also, you see that it can't make a personal assistant or an office assistant changing the order of the file. You know that this is a big problem in many offices. That is where the lowest level of corruption happens. The office assistant, when is given a certain amount of money, can take a file from bottom to top, or when he was not given, can put a file from top to bottom. These things cannot be done when you have this accountable automated service in the process. You tell me any system, I will explain you how it can be automated. If you're just trying to get your children to a school, or if a procurement process is going on in an office, or even the office CEO is taking his vehicle to some place. So everything is accounted with the application of the technology, because there is some non-human intervened system is mapping everything. And also, don't forget that these days, artificial intelligence is coming up very fast. And also it is getting generalized, so that you do not need only programmed automation. You can have intelligent automation, where the automated system can take an action according to the situation.
So, Professor, we talked about some applications of how technology can be used to reduce corruption. So, can you give me some examples of how other countries have successfully implemented these proposals?
Okay. Chamithu, now if you take a country like, let's say, let me take Sweden. Now, in Sweden, if you buy a car, from the moment that you bought the car, because you have to give your social security number, and then you have to do all your registrations, which will go into a network system, so that if you met with an accident of the car, and say that, for an example, you hit the car on a tree. So in Sri Lanka, for an example, you can just come to your home and then get the car repaired by a certain garage and then run. Now you see that you feel that there's no corruption in this case. But the corruption comes when you try to sell this car. Because most often you will not tell the buyer that the car has met with an accident. And that is dishonest conduct, which is harmful to the society. So it comes under corruption. Now most of you who are listening to this will understand how much corruption you all are involved with in the day-to-day life. But in Sweden, you can't do it. The reason is that one way you can do it, this is, if you have a garage, then you can get the car repaired. That's a very, very rare situation. Other than that, if you put your car into a garage for repairing, even for a very small repair, no garage can take your car, do the repair and return it back and get money without logging in what they have done. So that whenever you take your car to a garage, actually what they do is they will take your fingerprint, and everything about you will be recorded. Then they have to log in all information about what happened to the car and what they are going to do. Only after that, they can issue an invoice. So that whenever you are selling the car, you can't tell a single lie about how you use the car. You have to go through a certain process called valuating your car. And at that place, the entire record of your car will be given. And the person who buys the car knows what has gone through. And so this is one way you see that these countries have curbed the corruption at that level. I mean, for an example, in South Africa, not in a developed country, when we buy a car, actually a second-hand car, for an example, we can buy it without much fear that whether the seller is hiding something. There are people who can do these things, but it's rare. And then if I go into a little bit of future, in another 5 years, I'm sure that in many countries in the world, in the developed world, okay, many countries in the developed world, if you take Canada, USA, most of the European countries, Japan, I think Japan will pioneer this, South Korea, and so on, and Singapore. Either Japan or Singapore will uh, 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 go first into this level of technology where there is zero paper currency uh, in that country, so that all your earnings and your debts is on your fingerprints or retina and a password. That's it. So when you're earning money from your job or any transaction, your entire earning will go into a bank account, and it happens not only in terms of a check or paper currency, it happens through the same way that is happening today when you're having a bank account and a card. And then you do not even need the card. Say, for an example, if you go to any shop, you just put your fingerprint and key in the password or the pass number, and you do your transaction. Even if you want to tip a person, you can take your phone and then just ask that other person's social security number, and then you just tip him 100 rupees. Just it's a matter of a few seconds, and so that even from a beggar to the president, everyone is a part of this social security network. And you can donate money to a beggar by this method. Just you need your smartphone and you donate the beggar, and the beggar will get the money, and the government knows this much of money he has got. So now imagine this world. Can anybody do any type of corruption in this currency-less world? So that this level, no country has reached this level at the moment. But I'm sure that within the next 3 to 5 years, many countries, for an example, now Sweden is in the verge of going for paperless or paper currency-less system. Singapore is now almost going there, and Japan is now thinking about it, and Canada, US, all will follow. Take my word, for a country like Sri Lanka, we should not think that we are a backward country. We have enormous AI, IT, and automation technology experts who can do wonders. Actually, these are the people who do work for other countries, so that Sri Lanka can be the first. There is no reason why we cannot, but we need strong leadership for that. And this is the ultimatum, as I see. There may be further ultimatums, but this is the ultimatum I see in the present world, where everything is automated without human intervention, so that the tech will take care of all processes, and you make your transactions totally with your fingerprints and a password. So in this case, the password is very important, not only the fingerprints, so that no one can get away from a transaction without the government knowing that he has done it. And this will completely overcome the burden of tax evasions and having tax net in the country and so many things. So that finally we will go into a country with almost zero corruption.
So, Professor, it was certainly a very interesting discussion with you today. We looked at a lot of innovative methods of handling corruption, things that we haven't thought about before. Like, before this, I don't think a lot of people would have thought about using technology to handle corruption. This is a very new topic to us in Sri Lanka. So, Professor, is there any other message that you would like to give to the general public in Sri Lanka?
Yes, Chamithu, actually, at the end, I have a very important message to the public. This is from my own experience, I'm telling. In many underdeveloped countries, poor countries, when the technology is being introduced with the intention of curbing corruption, interestingly, a huge public protest comes up. This is unbelievable, but it has happened even in Sri Lanka. Although the technology is implemented for curbing corruption, which is for the betterment of the people start protesting against that. Let me give you one example. Just 1.5 decades ago, in Sri Lankan government institutes, the government implemented fingerprint system for reporting to the office. Instead of signing on a book, you have to give the fingerprints. You know that even in the University of Colombo, in the university system, there was a huge uprising. And people started taking union actions. And then some people went even into the level of sabotaging, damaging these machines, coming at night. And I know that some people came to the office and before putting the fingerprint on the machine, they put some paint or ink on the finger, thinking that they can destroy the machine by putting their finger with ink. And some people even started pressing it as hard as possible with the intention of damaging the machine. So now you see that this is actually where we started the topic, Chamithu. If you can remember, you asked me about this mindset of the people. This is exactly the problem in the country. We have been developed from our childhood with a mindset that prevents us from preventing corruption. So what I can request from the general public is that please try to get away from this negative mindset or negative psyche, as we say, and support the implementation, because maybe in the short term, you feel that some of these implementations are not beneficial to you, or they may reduce your gains, but in the long run, it will be wonderful to the society, to the country, and your children and grandchildren. Thank you very much.
So this brings us to the end of a very productive discourse. It certainly helped to shed light on a fresh way of looking at curbing corruption, at using technology to curb corruption. This is not something that we think about a lot in our public general lives. We don't think that we can use technology to reduce corruption. So this discussion certainly helped us to look at things in a new way, in a unique way. And we discussed a lot of innovative methods that we can use to reduce corruption. So, Professor, thank you for joining us today for this very interesting discussion. Thank you for spending your valuable time.